What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Wednesday live cast here on the ADOM Facebook page. So happy for you to join us. And yes, we have Steve Jensen today, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships with Dental Intelligence. And here's the deal, everybody, right? So Steve and I were just talking before we got started. He's going to go through both some PowerPoint slides today, as well as like a little software demo. But I think what's really cool about this live is that many of you know intuitively what things have been like in regards to your hygiene schedule and bringing patients back in regards to COVID and things like that. What's so cool about DI, which Steve is going to get into, is that they have this macro view, right? All of the practices that they serve across the country and the industry, they've got this view of actually what schedules are looking like, and they can utilize a lot of that data. So Steve, I know you're going to talk about that today. Welcome to the ADOM Livecast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me, John. This is a gift. ADOM, by the way, is the best tribe in the world. I love these guys. I was so sad we're not going to be at the conference together this year, but it makes it even more exciting to get there next year in Florida. So I'm pumped.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. And I know what you're going to share with everybody is that, their fall hygiene schedule, needs you, and you're going to get into a lot of great things that would have you. So what we'll do, everybody, as we always do, I'll go ahead and monitor the comments for questions. Any questions that you've got for Steve, go ahead and post those in there. I'll come back at the end of his presentation. He's got about 20 minutes or so to share some great information with you guys. We'll answer some questions. And Steve, the floor is yours.
All right. So John, that was a perfect introduction. Thank you, John. Like you said, we want to make sure that we're doing our best to help practices. And so in order to do that, like John said, we're looking at this 30,000 foot view to determine what are the trends in the industry, what's going well, what can we work on, and where can we apply resources to really make sure that we're empowering our office managers and leaders to succeed before COVID and then now, especially during COVID. So today, I specifically want to talk about hygiene schedules. And here's the deal. I know that everyone's busy, in fact, busier than ever, because that's what the data is showing me. Like John said, we're looking at over 8,000 clients that we work with to determine what's going on. And we noticed something that was a little alarming, but totally overcomable if we start taking some action. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into nerd zone for a minute and just show you some data. So what we're looking at here is the scheduled hygiene. Each one of those little bars represents a day for all of 2019. And as you can see, 2019 was a breeze. It stayed super consistent, just how we like it. But 2020, as you guys know, has been hardly consistent and has been not even close to a smooth ride. And this is exactly what 2020 looks like. It looks like a roller coaster at Disneyland. So this first little chunk here is COVID-19 when it hit. And as we expected, just because the ADA said we weren't going to see hygiene patients, our hygiene schedules dropped. But one of the unanticipated consequences to that was 6 months later, we didn't schedule anyone for the fall because we didn't see anybody in the spring. So what happened? Like I said, no hygiene visits in the spring means we didn't reappoint anybody for the fall. And so our schedules coming up this fall, even though we are as busy as ever, this little green part right here is our current hygiene schedule. Even though we're busier than ever right now, our future scheduled production for hygiene is going to drop big time over the next several months. So let's talk about a step-by-step action plan on how we're going to begin addressing that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the dynamics of the problem, and then we'll jump into how we can use software to do the grunt work instead of having to do the grunt work, put that grunt work onto our team's shoulders. So step number one with the problem. First, we need to identify, on average, how many hygiene visits we see a month in the practice. And for one doctor, two hygienist practice, 250 is pretty normal. And let's say this problem, since we didn't see patients, a good chunk of March, April and May, and even June, let's say our biggest problem is October, November, December. So we've got 3 months that we're going to look at that are problematic. And so total, we're going to need about 750 visits. Now, once I've determined how many total visits we need to get scheduled for those 3 months, we need to look and see how many visits do we already have scheduled. And this is the alarming thing that we've seen in the industry that's really low. And for this example, I'm going to say we already have 350 people scheduled, which means step 3, we are going to need to get 400 people scheduled between now and the end of the year. And here's the deal. Once you've figured out this number, I would encourage every practice in the US to get this number, put it on a whiteboard, put it in your break room, and make sure the team can see this number so that we can work towards it. And then the last thing is we need to come up with a strategy. And here's where we want to get the team involved. As you guys know, our teams are brilliant. And if we can empower them to use their own genius to come up with creative ways to get people scheduled, how to solve problems, they always come through. So this is when we want to start strategizing. And I want to go over a few of the options that we have. And for the sake of today, I'm going to highlight one in particular. The first option that everyone's going to consider as they're trying to figure out how am I going to tackle my fairly empty fall hygiene schedule, the first mode of attack for sure is going to be have our team begin doing manual recare efforts, making phone calls, sending emails, those types of things. However, we're going to discuss why that's not going to be viable. We're going to need to supplement that a little bit. We can implement some online scheduling campaigns. That's the one I'm going to highlight today. We can use third-party dental call centers to help supplement our recare efforts in the front office. We can also increase our marketing spend to get additional new patients to help fill some of those holes in the schedule. So before I jump into online scheduling, let's talk about manually scheduling patients really quick, our recare efforts. So normally in a typical year, let's say in January, in our hygiene department, we saw, you can see here, roughly $600 worth of production. We're going to get about 80% of those patients rescheduled 6 months later for June, which means that our front office team and our marketing spend is going to be responsible to fill about 20% of our hygiene schedule. So normally we start months pretty full already, and we don't have to fill up too much of the schedule. Now, that represents 1 month's worth of work. Now in 2020, the problem is that, like I said, because we didn't see hygiene patients in the spring, we don't have hygiene schedule for the fall. So we've got this big old empty chunk that normally would be about 80% full. So we need to get all those lines to go to the top of red by the time September, October, November, December hit. So here's what I want you to conceptualize. Imagine that little orange square I've drawn represents 1 month on the left-hand side of the screen. And I'm going to take this orange square and I'm going to pretend like our team can work for the next 3 months to fill up that big gap we have. And that represents 3 months of work. Now imagine they work 3 times as hard as they normally would work, and they get 3 times as much recare done. That's how much we would fill up of this gap. You can quickly see that we are left with a compounding problem where we are going to need to supplement the efforts of our front office team to get our hygiene schedule full for the fall. This is the concerning trend that we saw, and we realized we want to jump in and begin helping educate and then help practice begin brainstorming solutions on how they're going to solve the problem. So here's where I want to jump into solutions. For sure, check. We're going to use our front office team to get as much done as possible, but we need to supplement that. So like I said, I'm going to strongly suggest that we use online scheduling to begin supplementing. The reason why is because this is going to allow us to reduce the number of phone calls the front office team takes, especially considering the fact that right now they're doing a bunch of additional virtual waiting room phone calls and text messages. Phone calls I've been hearing are ringing off the hook because all these patients we missed in the spring are saying, hey, like it's time for me to get in. Is there time? I want to come in for my hygiene visit. Now these other two, there might be a place for them as well. It just depends on what your practice needs. But let's for today focus on online scheduling. It's going to be the least expensive and the most efficient for the team. So let's actually check out. Here's where I want to jump in and show you guys how we can begin using data and software to really make the lives easier for our front office team. So let me jump in, and I'm actually going to share and show you guys what Dental Intel looks like. So if you've never seen Dental Intel before, this is what it looks like. A bunch of beautiful numbers. Now remember, I said when we're looking at the fall hygiene problem, the first thing we need to do is identify how many visits do we need to see on average. So here, I can quickly do that. Now for this practice, I can look at year over year, and I can quickly see in the hygiene department, I'm just going to look at 2019. So for these guys, they roughly see in hygiene somewhere to the tune of almost 500 patients a year for these guys, or a month. So they see quite a few, and they only have, this is October, 87 scheduled. So even October alone, they need to fill almost 300 hygiene appointments. And I could go and look at November and December as well to quickly determine how many visits do I need to get scheduled for this fall, and how far behind are we, so that I understand the big mountain of a goal we need to set as a team. Now, once I understand that inside of Dental Intel, I can look at that really quick. By the way, our team will jump on and show you this totally free. We can show you exactly where you're sitting, how many visits you need to get scheduled, and walk you through this at no cost to you. We call it a snapshot, and we'll do it all day, every day for all ADOM members. Now, once I understand just how many people I need to get scheduled, here's where our software can be doing tons of work. I'm going to jump into an application called Patient Finder. And it's literally as simple as the software's name, this application's name. Patient Finder helps you identify and find patients that are best suited to fill the schedule for any need you have. You can even create filters from scratch to find patients who have a very specific insurance, that have crowns that have been diagnosed if you're looking to fill the doctor's schedule. But for the sake of today, since we're talking hygiene, I want to talk about hygiene filters. So we've created 2 very specific filters to help practices quickly find all their patients, adults and children, who are due for hygiene that can fill the schedule for this fall. So if I click on this pre-populated list, this practice, it gives me 300 patients that are ready to get scheduled for hygiene this fall. They're due. And then here's where the genius comes in. Normally, what an office manager and front office team would have to do with this list of 300 is they would just start on the first person, they would click on the name, and they would just start calling and texting and emailing until they got the schedule full. And then making notes as they go along if they have to call someone back, etc. But we've made it insanely easy because we recognize that you guys don't have time to add more stuff to your schedule, more stuff to the things you need to get done. So we've made it super easy for you guys to begin communicating with patients. So under this Actions tab, when I click on this, you'll notice there's a Send Message button. When I click on this, it brings up a little wizard, super simple, where I can quickly select this group. I want to get them scheduled for a teeth cleaning for an adult. You'll see a preview of the text with a link for them to schedule. This is where it gets super awesome. And then on the bottom, I'm going to select the date where I want them to begin seeing opening times in my hygiene schedule, and they can begin scheduling. So let's say, for example, in this practice, they have problems starting the end of September they need to fill in hygiene. So we'll say September 28th. And then you click on Send Message. And once you click Send Message, every single one of these 300 patients is going to get a message, an email and a text message with this message and the scheduling link. Now that link allows the patient to pick a date and time that works best for them, and it writes the appointment directly into Dentrix, Eaglesoft, Open Dental, the exact same way that you guys would do it yourself. It doesn't add more phone calls to the team. It's not an appointment request. It literally allows them to schedule right where you would want them to schedule, which is like mind-blowing for most people. And by the way, patients love this. We did a big survey, and we found that 80% of patients would prefer scheduling online. Now, some of you might be thinking, I'm going to jump back into some slides for a second, because I get this all the time. This is super normal. Some of you might be thinking, hey, Steve, I like the idea of online scheduling, but the last thing I want to do is give my patients control over my schedule. They will ruin everything. I can't open up my schedule. Or you might be thinking that your schedule is too complicated for a solution like this. Let me just assure you that we work with some of the largest DSOs even in the country. And thousands of practices are using the software, and we've thought through every combination of scheduling rules. And you have the ability to tailor your schedule and exactly what the patients see to your scheduling rules. So you are still in 100% control of the schedule, and we'll make sure that patients don't end up in the wrong place, that they will always end up in the schedule, the exact place at the exact time you want them to be. So you're in full control here still with online scheduling. Now, if you have more questions, obviously throw them in the chat. We'll hit them at the end. If you have questions about capabilities, what can we do with this? How does it work? Throw them in there. But this, like I said, is going to be a phenomenal tool to reduce the number of phone calls your front office team has to take, reduce the number of emails they have to respond to in order to still get the schedule full. And your patients, by the way, will be thrilled when you let them know that they can begin scheduling from the comfort of their couch and they don't even have to talk to anybody at 10 o'clock at night. Okay, so let's come back to the problem. Let's say, remember, I said we were trying to get 400 visits full for fall hygiene because we're behind because we didn't see people in the spring. So let's say in this online scheduling path, this solution we're going to try, let's say we send out a message 2 or 3 times. So we've sent out 600 messages. Of those 600 people that receive an email and a text, let's say 200 of them actually click on the link to schedule. Now we're monitoring this number like hawks, and on average, we're seeing from our data that 46% of the people that click on the scheduling link actually schedule an appointment, which is phenomenal. That's really high. So from 1 or 2 messages we send out, we're going to get 92 people scheduled, which represents so much work we just saved for you and your front office team. So once again, let me come back to the step-by-step action plan I want everyone to begin considering as you're figuring out how to tackle the empty fall hygiene schedule. First, I want everyone to go and identify, on average, how many visits do you see a month so that we can figure out how many we need for the rest of the year. Then 2, we need to figure out how many do we already have scheduled so that we know just how big of a ticket we have in front of us to get scheduled between now and September, October, November. And then, of course, as always, let's let the genius of our teams thrive and get together and create a strategy on how we are going to tackle this issue. So in my mind, we have a couple of options. Number 1, we could jump off of this little demo and we could say, you know what, like my team's got it, I'm not going to worry about it, and we could do nothing, which to me is concerning, by the way. I hope that from the data you realize, hey, I at least need to go look at my practice to see how our fall hygiene schedule is looking, because industry-wide, it's not looking good. So my guess is that your practice is going to look very similar. So please take a look. And then my encouragement is allow software to do some of the grunt work for you and supplement the efforts of the front office team to make sure that we're not overburdening anyone with more than they can tackle. And this is not an expensive solution, by the way. You can jump on the phone with our team and they can walk you through the different options. Now, at Dental Intel, we love numbers. We love you guys. Like I said in the beginning, the reason why we're watching industry trends is we want to make sure that we're equipping your tribe and our tribe with the best possible information so we can be ahead of problems and tackle them confidently without increasing our stress level and without increasing the big efforts of our team. Now, John, that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to show people today. I can jump in if people want to and show a little bit more of kind of how the online scheduling widget looks for the patient themselves. But I thought that would get us to a good point where we could chat and maybe answer some questions.
Yeah, great stuff. I think, like we said in the beginning, there's this element. You guys are such a value-added resource for not only the customers that you serve, but the industry as a whole, right? Because you have this macro look at what is happening. And I know one of the questions that people are probably thinking, Steve, is, okay, if I'm not a customer now, I'm not a DI customer, but I'd like to can I get on with an expert and have you guys go through some things and look at my practice so I can kind of understand how all this works before I move forward and start to get a little more comfortable with data?
Yeah, for sure. In fact, that's one of the things that I love about Dental Intelligence is anyone in the industry. You do not have to be a client. We'll jump on, we'll sync with Dentrix, Eaglesoft Open Dental, and we can show you exactly how things are going and help come up with a plan. And honest, who cares if you buy our software or not? We genuinely just want to help in that scenario. So we'll have a kind of a consultative approach to show you what's going on, what are your goals, what do you want to accomplish, and then try to help you come up with a solid plan to go and tackle those. So for sure, jump on with us. There's no cost, no commitment there to do that initial phone call where we can review your data with you.
Awesome. All right. So then another question that I wanted to ask is, with COVID-19, I know you went over a lot of the hygiene piece today, right? That's one, what I'll like to call data sandbox that you guys provide for clients and the scheduling and all of that through LocalMed. But I know with a lot of people, it feels like with a lot of the shutdown, Steve, that they really took some time to dig into the numbers part of their business, right? People had time. They're like, oh, that's cool. Let's get into this and look to this. What can you share with people in regards to what matters most right now? Like, what are you guys seeing? What are you hearing from clients that are trying to manage their practices through all of this to where you could help people with some insight of what really matters most right now when it comes to their data?
Yeah, great. So I think first and foremost, I always say this in every one of my presentations, in every lecture, what matters most are the people and the human beings behind the data, 100% always. Let me just get that on the table, right? Whenever we talk numbers, I think there can be a habit to lose the emotion and lose the connection with the individuals behind it. So I talk production, I talk reappointment, I talk about how our hygiene department's doing, but ultimately what matters most is the people. Now, with that being said, the data that we're looking at that I think matters most, I think for sure what I brought up right now in my mind is the most pressing issue to be paying attention to. It's one where we're in the habit of looking several weeks ahead in our schedule, and right now the next couple of weeks look strong. So I don't think this issue is on most people's minds. But if you look forward now 2-3 months, there is a big problem, and so we just wanted to help people get that on their radar. Now, a couple other things I've been noticing that I think are worth paying attention to. With the increased need to do sanitization between hygiene visits and restorative visits, and then trying to make sure we're rushing through things, I have noticed a slight drop in hygiene reappointment percentage. So still making sure that we're following our traditional habits and cadence of getting people scheduled for their next hygiene visit is super important to make sure we don't compound, the empty fall hygiene problem in the future as well.
Perfect. All right,
I would suggest right now, but really what I talked about is the biggest one.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so we do have a question from the thread. So what if you do utilize the texting service? Will it only offer available appointments, and does it do only one day at a time or several days?
Great. So that's up to you. You can set it up however many days you want the patient to see. So for example, if you only want them to see appointments on a single day and you want to send an individual message to a patient, you can do that. If you want to send a mass message and show them, let's say, a whole month's worth, so your November is empty, you want to show them November 1 to the end of the month, you can show them that. You can even restrict which operatories you want them to see. So you've got 4 hygienists, but you only want to focus on kind of 2 of them. You can do that as well. So really the world's your oyster with what you're allowing patients to see when they're scheduling. It's super robust.
Awesome. All right. Well, as we close out, wanted to, give you the opportunity to, let everybody know how they can learn more about you guys. I think more importantly, you were going to take a little time just to let everybody know that to put some information, any links right in the comments section, everybody. So Steve will go ahead and make sure that he does that. If he's a multitasker, which I have a feeling that he is, right? Because he's kind of all, doing all these different things. He might be doing that right now. If not, he will do that. I think he's doing it right now, actually.
I'm jumping on ADOM right now.
Perfect. So wanted to just have you let everybody know how they can learn more information about dental intelligence, how they can set up, like what you mentioned, one of those initial calls. And those are important, right, Steve? I think that's a nice feature that you guys offer, which is to give people that opportunity to learn a little bit about what you guys do. It feels like practices are recognizing more the importance of data. But I'm glad that you mentioned the people behind the numbers, right? Because that's where it all starts. And I think people they really need to understand how the data can help them. So I know you guys do that through these initial calls and things like that. So if you could just let everybody know where they can find out more about you guys.
Yeah, great. So obviously, as always, you can go to our website, dentalintel.com, fill out the form just right there on the page, and just mention that you are part of the ADOM tribe. Like, let us know so that we know where you're coming from. But I did go ahead and create a specific link for this one in particular. It's a little bit long. John, I put in the chat, I was looking to see if I could figure out a way to get this into the Facebook stream. If you guys can help me get it there. It's get.dentalintel.com/ADOM ball schedule. It's really long. So I'll make sure that gets out to people. Otherwise, if you can't remember that, honestly, you can just go to dentalintel.com and click on our little, it says demo there, so it won't say consultation, but just click on that, fill out the form, say, hey, I was on the webinar with Steve, Facebook Live. We were talking about the fall hygiene schedule. I wanted to get hooked up and see how my practice is doing, and that will get you just as far. We'll make sure we get the red carpet experience for you.
Sweet. Well, Steve, this has been awesome. Again, you always come with great energy. You guys are putting out great stuff on a daily basis. I know the ADOM team and everybody at ADOM Nation really appreciates Dental Intelligence and coming on here and taking the time to share this good information. So stay safe out there in Utah. And like we've been saying to everybody, hopefully soon there will be meetings again, right? We can see people in person, but until then, I know you guys are a great resource. And once again, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, John. It was a pleasure. See you guys.
Yep.